Yo guys, what's up? After the Blitz and Operation Sunflower had both ended in May 1941, Hitler was convinced that Britain was knocked out of the war and ordered to commence Operation Barbarossa on June 22nd, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Divisions were ready in giant railway station Poland. Backup was ready in Hungary and Romania, but Hitler only had time for a blitzkrieg straight through Ukraine and into Moscow. In 4 months, weather conditions would be too unpredictable for a victory. With a first blitz attack from Bialystok in East Poland to Minsk in Belarusia, behind Ukraine, 750,000 German troops broke through the Soviet border defenses on June 22nd and made an advance to Minsk, surrounding the Soviets by July 3rd. Marshal Fedor von Bock led the attack against Dmitry Pavlov, who had commanded 675,000 troops. Half of them were killed or captured. Nearly 77,000 were wounded. Germany lost 276 airplanes, while taking out all grounded planes of the Soviet Air Force. 1,669 Soviet planes were destroyed, as well as nearly 4,800 tanks. After Hitler stepped into his wolf's lair for the first time on June 23rd, all German troops were allowed to make a 500-kilometer advance through West Ukraine in 17 days, for a reason. All this time, Hitler had conquered nations who were poorly set up at the start. The point of Blitzkrieg was to hit the enemy hard and fast, and to keep on advancing to give him no chance to reorganize. But with an enemy dug away so deep inside Eastern Europe, loads of fuel would be necessary for planes and tanks. By drawing the enemy far into his own ground, stalling them into winter, Stalin was convinced of a victory thanks to his T-34 defensive lines. Because the T-34 was already being mass-produced since 1931, 5 years before the Panzer IV, Stalin had the biggest tank arsenal in the world. And because most of the industrial regions were hidden away behind Moscow and Stalingrad, the Luftwaffe would never be able to reach the area. At the start of the war, Stalin had ordered his civilians in the West to evacuate to Moscow and to burn all their fuel, food and clothing back home. This scorched earth policy would drive underdressed Germans into famine and costly delays. It wasn't until July 6th that Hitler saw combat in the city of Smolensk, but it immediately demolished all of his personal plans. The Soviet resistance dragged Hitler into a different kind of war, and an extra front was opened up on July 15 in Uman. Hungary, Slovakia and Romania supplied extra troops and secured the city by August 8. By then, Hitler's all-German troops had captured Smolensk after 4,610 Axis troops had died in Uman. More than 300,000 Red Army troops surrendered by August 3rd in Smolensk. Commander Fedor von Bock had required a full month to secure one city with 430,000 troops and 1,000 tanks. The Battle of Kiev began on August 23rd and also took another month, under command of Gerd von Rundstedt. He had nearly 550,000 troops at his disposal. On September 26th, Kiev was captured with 27,000 Germans KIA. On August 27 and 28, Hitler had a personal meeting with Mussolini in Anlage Süd, his personal railway bunker in southeast Poland, to discuss the involvement of Italy, and already warned Mussolini about the different kind of war that was going on. After a 2-day meeting, Mussolini agreed to help Hitler when needed, even though he only used Romania for a victory in the Crimea campaign. Italy came to Hitler's aid for the Battle of Sevastopol, a port in the Crimea and the Black Sea, but this part of Crimea would not be secured until mid-1942. Hitler had already wasted a lot of time by September. He received help from Spanish General Francisco Franco, who sent troops to Finland via the Baltic Sea. Finland and Spain linked up with the Heeresgruppe coming in from Poland and attacked the city of Leningrad starting September 8. The T-34 tanks and a nationalist enemy defending his homeland with hardened defensive lines proved to be highly vulnerable to Nazis and their panzers. But on September 26th, weather conditions would already start to have a game-changing impact. Even though the Red Army had lost 186,000 soldiers at Smolensk and more than 616,000 soldiers were killed or captured at Kiev, the citizens of Moscow had taken their precautions by massively digging trenches all over the city with the help of slave labor. When the time would come, even the citizens would be prepared to fire a weapon in defense of their nation. Berezovsky delivered that extra edge for the German troops once again, but with Stalin's tank battle, they saw a completely different battlefield where people like General Guderian had the most know-how. With the Battle of Moscow delayed until October 2nd, 1941, and Russian winter conditions coming in, a blockade in Leningrad was established to take the war into its decisive stage, the Battle of Moscow, personally led by Hitler, performed by Fedor von Bock and Albert Kesselring, General Field Marshal of the Luftwaffe. Even though snow was in the air and the German infantry and vehicles were experiencing the full effect of Russian roads exposed to snowy rain, Hitler was so close to Stalin that his presence was needed from a new headquarters to keep up German morale after this long period. But instead of an impressive German victory, Hitler received a 3-month delay on top of the 3-month delay until Moscow. See you on the next one, guys. Peace.